10 shocking ancient discoveries around the world that scientists still can't explain. Hello, and welcome back to the latest video on the Ancient History channel. My friend, what would you think if I told you that everything we've learned about history so far might not be entirely accurate? That somewhere, buried beneath layers of earth thousands of years old, there are still secrets powerful enough to leave even scientists stunned and force them to rewrite everything they once believed to be true? Sounds a bit exaggerated, doesn't it? But the truth is, in just the past few years, a series of new archaeological discoveries has continued to emerge, each one like a surprising twist that makes the story of human history more complex and fascinating than ever before. There are ancient tombs containing artifacts that even modern technology might struggle to replicate. There are skeletons revealing stories that have never been recorded before. And there are even discoveries that make us question whether ancient humans were truly as primitive as we've always believed. What's even more remarkable is that these discoveries aren't from science fiction or distant legends. They are completely real, uncovered by scientists in our own time. So what is really hidden beneath the dust of time? In today's video, we're going to explore 10 of the most recent ancient discoveries, mysteries that not only puzzle archaeologists, but could also change the way we understand the origins and development of humanity. Are you ready to explore with me? If you are, let's begin with the very first discovery right now. 742 skeletons from 9,000 years ago reveal humanity's first urban curse. My friends, have you ever wondered what life would have been like thousands of years ago? Back when humans first began gathering in large numbers in what we might call proto-cities. Was it truly as peaceful as we imagine? Or were there hidden tragedies that even today we are still unknowingly repeating? If not, then join me on a journey to a remarkable place, Çatalhöyük in Turkey, considered one of the oldest urban settlements in human history. What has sent chills around the world is the discovery of 742 skeletons found here, like a warning echoing across 9,000 years of history. The story begins around 7,100 BCE. At that time, Çatalhöyük was far from a desolate land. It was an incredibly bustling settlement with a population that may have reached up to 8,000 people, a massive number for the Stone Age. This was also the period when humans began abandoning their nomadic, wandering lifestyle to settle permanently in one place. But just imagine this. When thousands of people are packed into a confined space, what happens? At Çatalhöyük, houses were built so closely together that there were no conventional doorways. To enter a home, people had to climb onto the roof using a ladder and then descend inside. It may sound fascinating, but in reality, it reflects an extremely cramped way of life with little to no personal space. And that overcrowding brought a cascade of consequences. Scientific analysis revealed that 33% of the 742 skeletons showed signs of bacterial infections, indicating extremely unsanitary living conditions. In fact, traces of human and animal waste were found densely covering floors and walls. Just imagine how quickly disease could spread in such an environment. But it didn't stop there. Nutrition was also a serious issue. About 13% of women and 10% of men had severely damaged teeth, suggesting an imbalanced diet, one that relied too heavily on grains while lacking other essential food sources. Even more alarming, among the skeletons studied, about 25% in one sample group showed signs of skull fractures, blows strong enough to cause death. This indicates that violence was a frequent occurrence. When humans are pushed into scarcity, disease, and survival pressure, conflict becomes almost inevitable. As time went on, conditions only grew worse. Studies of leg bones show that people in later periods had to walk longer distances to find food, suggesting that nearby resources were gradually depleted. A once thriving settlement was now struggling just to survive day by day. All of these factors, overcrowding, pollution, disease, food shortages, and violence, combined into what could be described as an invisible curse, slowly eroding life at Çatalhöyük. After about 1,000 years of existence, the settlement ultimately collapsed, leaving behind hundreds of skeletons as a chilling reminder. What's truly thought-provoking is that what happened at Çatalhöyük 9,000 years ago closely mirrors the challenges modern cities face today: environmental pollution, high population density, disease, and the pressures of daily life. This raises a profound question. From the very beginning of urban civilization, did humanity have to pay a heavy price? And are we, perhaps, walking down the very same path our ancestors once stumbled upon? What do you think about this urban curse? Share your thoughts, because your answer might just be the key to helping us better understand not only the past, but also our future. The Dashka Stone, a 120-million-year-old man-made map? Perhaps when you explore history, you've already realized one thing for sure. In humanity's journey to uncover unsolved mysteries, there are discoveries that make us pause and reflect, and others that continue to spark debate to this day. The mysterious Dashka Stone, an artifact discovered in 1999 in the Ural Mountains of Russia, is a perfect example of this. At first glance, it may not seem unusual, but what makes it truly extraordinary is a shocking hypothesis. It could be a map dating back as far as 120 million years. Yes, 120 million years, a time when humans didn't even exist. So who could have created it? To begin answering that question, we have to go back to July 21st, 1999. On that day, a team of archaeologists from Bashkir State University was conducting research in the Ural Mountains. During their work, they unexpectedly discovered a massive stone slab. The stone measures about 58 inches tall, 42 inches wide, and 6.3 inches thick, with a weight of nearly 1 ton. Its sheer size alone is enough to draw attention, but the real shock lies on its surface. Upon closer inspection, researchers realized that the patterns carved into the stone were not random. They resembled an extremely detailed topographic map, accurately depicting the region of Bashkiria, part of the Ural Mountains. The scale of the map is considered almost perfect, about 0.4 inches on the stone, corresponding to roughly 0.7 miles in reality. Even at this point, something already feels unusual, doesn't it? The leader of the research team, Alexander Chuvirov, even named the stone Dashka after his granddaughter, who was born on the very day of its discovery. But what astonished him and his colleagues even more was the structure of the stone itself. Unlike a natural rock, the Dashka stone appears to be composed of 3 distinct layers of material. The bottom layer, about 7 inches thick, resembles a kind of cement or ceramic compound made from dolomite. The second layer is thinner, about 1 inch, and contains diopside glass rich in silicon, a highly complex material. The top layer, only a few millimeters thick, is believed to be a special coating that may help protect the surface or even reflect light. Simply put, this does not look like a natural stone. It appears to be a deliberately manufactured object. And that's not all. On this map, scientists have also identified traces of large-scale engineering structures, such as canals stretching up to 7,500 miles, dams and symbols resembling hieroglyphic writing that remain undeciphered to this day. Some experts even suggest these symbols may be related to ancient forms of Chinese characters. What's even more intriguing is that the terrain on the Dashka stone appears to be represented from an aerial perspective, almost like a satellite image. And this raises an even bigger question. Who or what could have created such a map from that vantage point in ancient times? To determine its age, researchers analyzed fossilized shells embedded within the stone. One of them may be as old as 500 million years, while another is estimated to be around 120 million years old. From this, the theory of a 120 million-year-old map began to emerge. However, things are not that simple. While some scientists support this idea, others remain skeptical. They argue that the presence of ancient shells within the stone does not necessarily mean the entire artifact is of the same age. Some estimates suggest the stone may actually be around 3,000 years old, still ancient but far more plausible than hundreds of millions of years. Furthermore, some researchers believe that the map-like patterns could simply be natural formations, cracks and textures in the rock that coincidentally resemble geographic features. In other words, what we are seeing might just be the human mind connecting random details into a meaningful image. So what exactly is the Dashka stone? Is it evidence of an ancient civilization far more advanced than we can imagine? Or is it simply a natural phenomenon that has been exaggerated? Can you answer that question? Do you believe this is truly an ancient map, or just a strange coincidence of nature? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's explore this mystery together. A 1,500-year-old set of knives in Hadrianopolis, revealing a forgotten secret of ancient animal husbandry. You know, in archaeological excavations, sometimes the most surprising discoveries aren't gold or treasure, but rather ordinary, everyday objects. small items that hold within them long and detailed stories about the lives of ancient people. A powerful example of this is a set of 1,500-year-old knives discovered in the ancient city of Hadrianopolis, located in northern Turkey. This place was once a bustling settlement that spanned multiple historical periods, from the late Roman era to the early Byzantine period. During excavations in an area known as the Hammam Bath Complex, archaeologists unexpectedly uncovered this knife set. At first glance, it may sound quite ordinary, a few old knives and a sharpening stone. But don't underestimate it, because when the pieces of history were put back together, they revealed a vivid picture of life more than 1,000 years ago. The excavation team, led by Professor Ersin Çelikbaş, discovered 4 iron knives with similar designs but different sizes, found alongside a traditional sharpening stone known locally as a köşere taşı. What's remarkable is that when they were first found, the knives were not intact. They had shattered into around 250 small fragments, scattered across what is believed to have been the kitchen area of the complex. At this point, many might think, so what's left to study? But through meticulous laboratory work, archaeologists carefully pieced together each fragment, successfully reconstructing the original shapes of the knives. And once they were brought back to life, the real story began. What makes this discovery special is not just the knives themselves, but the fact that they were found together in the same context. In archaeology, discovering a complete set of tools like this is extremely rare. It's like finding not just a single puzzle piece, but an entire picture still in its frame. According to expert analysis, the presence of these tools together suggests they were used for a very specific purpose, related to animal husbandry and food processing. In simpler terms, this may have been the toolkit of people who butchered and processed livestock more than 1,500 years ago. This finding also aligns with earlier archaeological evidence from Hadrianopolis, indicating that the area once had a thriving economy based on livestock farming. In other words, the people here weren't just surviving day by day, they had developed a relatively organized and stable food production system. And the story doesn't end there, because the sharpening stone found alongside the knives adds an especially intriguing detail. This type of stone became well known during the later Ottoman period, commonly used for sharpening cutting tools. However, its presence alongside a 1,500-year-old knife set suggests that local people had been utilizing this resource much earlier than historical records indicate. In other words, techniques we might consider more modern may have actually existed far earlier than we once thought. Based on stratigraphic analysis, scientists determined that the knife set dates back to around the 5th or 6th century CE during the early Byzantine period. This was also a time when Hadrianopolis was flourishing, with relatively stable economic and social conditions. From all this evidence, researchers arrived at a thought-provoking conclusion. Livestock farming in this region has continued for approximately 1,500 years, from ancient times all the way to the present day. A remarkable level of continuity, wouldn't you agree? Not only that, but the ancient city of Hadrianopolis has also been nicknamed the Zeugma of the Black Sea, thanks to the stunning mosaics discovered there. This shows that the city was not only economically developed, but also culturally rich. Looking back at the entire story, we can see that sometimes the simplest objects, like a knife or a sharpening stone, can tell us incredibly powerful stories about human history. Isn't that fascinating? A 2,000-year-old Iron Age warrior's tomb and a mysterious shield of unexpected value. You know, history is fascinating. Sometimes it isn't found in the books we usually read. It lies quietly beneath our feet, waiting for a sluicious strike of a shovel to bring it back to light. And the story I'm about to tell you begins exactly like that, not with a grand excavation, but at an ordinary construction site in East Yorkshire. In 2018, while workers were carrying out routine construction work at the site, they unexpectedly uncovered an ancient burial belonging to Celtic culture, dating back roughly 2,000 years. They quickly reported it to local authorities, and before long, an archaeological team was dispatched to investigate. Once archaeologists began their work, they immediately realized this was no ordinary grave. At the center of the burial lay the remains of a remarkable warrior, most likely a powerful commander. This man was not buried alone. He was interred with full armor, weapons, provisions, and most notably, a chariot pulled by 2 horses. The horses were buried alongside him, but in a strikingly unusual way. They were positioned standing upright, as if still ready to charge forward. The image is chilling. It feels almost like a ritual farewell, one in which the commander would continue his journey into the afterlife. Further analysis revealed that the tomb dates to approximately 320 to 174 BCE, a time when Celtic tribes dominated the British Isles. This period is also associated with the Aris culture, known for its distinctive burial practices, including chariot burials. But the story doesn't end there. Surrounding the central grave, archaeologists discovered several additional burials containing the remains of younger warriors. The number of skeletons was so significant that if assembled, they could form a small but formidable army. This led researchers to believe that the man at the center was not just a warrior, but a highly respected leader, possibly the commander of a powerful force. He may not have died in battle, but from old age. Yet the items buried with him suggest a life shaped by countless brutal conflicts. After nearly a year of careful restoration, particularly of the weapons, British archaeologists recently concluded that these are among the most significant artifacts discovered in the current millennium. The most valuable artifact is undoubtedly the shield placed beside the commander's remains. Initially, the shield was found in severely damaged condition. The leather and wooden handle had almost completely decayed after centuries underground. But once restored, its true value began to emerge. The shield measures about 29 inches in length and was crafted by artisans of the La Tène culture, a renowned artistic tradition of ancient Europe typically associated with elites and royalty. At its center is a prominent raised boss, flanked by intricate triple spiral motifs. When intact, the shield would have displayed a brilliant golden sheen from its bronze surface, bordered by unique scallop-like patterns. To this day, no other artifact from the European Iron Age has been found with a similar design. But what makes this shield even more extraordinary are the marks of battle. On its surface, researchers identified a clear slash mark, evidence that it was not merely decorative but actually used in combat. In fact, the shield shows signs of having been repaired and reinforced multiple times, as if it had accompanied its owner through battle after battle. In the end, it was buried as an inseparable part of the commander's life. With all these qualities, the shield has been recognized as one of the most important Celtic artworks in Britain in the 3rd millennium. It has even been compared to the legendary Wandsworth shield, currently displayed at the British Museum. Looking back at the entire story, we realize that an ancient tomb is not just a resting place for the dead, it is a gateway to a lost world. What do you think? Or do you see it differently? The temple that rises and sinks with the sea in India. Do you believe that somewhere in this world, there exists a sacred temple that disappears beneath the sea every day, only to rise again like a miracle? It may sound like something out of science fiction, but it is completely real in India. This is the Stambeshwar Mahadev Temple, also known by its unique name, the Sinking Temple. It sits quietly along the coast of the Arabian Sea in the town of Kavi Kamboi, in the state of Gujarat. At around 150 years old, Stambeshwar Mahadev Temple is a sacred shrine dedicated to Shiva, where faith and nature intertwine in a truly mesmerizing way, captivating thousands of visitors. Nestled between the Gulf of Kambat and the Arabian Sea, this small temple is not architecturally elaborate. It is simple, modest, and deeply spiritual. Yet that simplicity is exactly what gives it a unique charm, making it a must-visit destination for Hindu devotees and curious travelers alike. You can easily reach the temple by car or taxi from Vadodara, which is only about 47 miles away. If you prefer traveling by train, Vadodara railway station is the nearest stop, making the journey quite convenient. According to ancient Hindu legend, the Stambeshwar Mahadev temple was built by Kartikeya, the son of Shiva. The story begins with a battle between Kartikeya and the demon Tarakasura. After defeating the demon, Kartikeya did not feel pride. Instead, he was burdened with guilt for taking a life. Seeing this, Vishnu reassured him that his actions were necessary to protect humanity from evil. However, seeking redemption and inner peace, Kartikeya followed Vishnu's guidance and built this temple as a prayer for forgiveness to the universe and the divine. What makes Stambeshwar Mahadev truly legendary is a remarkable natural phenomenon that occurs every single day. When the tide rises, the temple is completely submerged beneath the sea, leaving nothing but a vast stretch of water and a few floating flowers, offerings left behind by devotees. But when the tide recedes, the temple slowly re-emerges. First the walls appear, then the steps, and finally the sacred Shiva Lingam, standing over 4 feet tall, rises once again as if by a miracle. This daily cycle of submerging and reappearing is not just a natural event, it also carries deep symbolic meaning in Hindu culture, representing rebirth and purification. To fully experience this wonder, it's best to spend an entire day here. Early morning is the ideal time to meditate in the peaceful atmosphere, just as the temple reappears from beneath the tide. You can walk around the site, listening to the sound of the waves blending with whispered prayers, creating a truly calming experience. By midday, you can enjoy a meal at nearby restaurants located less than a third of a mile from the parking area, or choose to partake in free meals offered by the temple for devotees. Then, the miracle happens again. As the sea rises, the water gradually covers the temple walls, slowly submerging every corner. It's a breathtaking moment, like watching the entire temple quietly sink into the ocean, carrying with it a sense of sacredness and reverence as night falls over this mystical place. It is precisely this combination of powerful natural forces, moving spiritual legends, and the quiet beauty of ancient architecture that has made Stampeshwar Mahadev Temple one of the most unique religious destinations in the world. A place where humans, gods, and the sea come together in an unforgettable spiritual dance. Su, the most complete T-Rex skeleton in the world and the story that shook the scientific community. Hey, imagine this. One day you're walking through a barren landscape and suddenly you notice a massive bone sticking out of a cliff. What would you do? Ignore it, thinking it's just a rock? Or stop, dig a little deeper, and possibly touch one of the greatest discoveries in history? If you're not sure what you do in that moment, then let's go back to the summer of 1990. Because that's exactly when a fossil hunter named Susan Hendrickson made such a discovery. At the time, she was exploring an area near the town of Faith, South Dakota, in the United States. Everything seemed routine, just another field trip, until she noticed large bone fragments emerging from the ground. At first, she thought it might be an ordinary find, but driven by curiosity, she took a closer look and realized something extraordinary. These were the remains of a Tyrannosaurus rex, the legendary predator that once dominated Earth millions of years ago, more commonly known as T-Rex. But this skeleton had a special name, Su, named after the woman who discovered it. And here's what makes Su truly remarkable. It's not just that it belongs to one of the coolest dinosaurs ever, it's the nearly unimaginable level of preservation. Susan reported that despite being buried for about 65 million years, more than 90% of the skeleton remained intact. Just think about that. For 65 million years, enduring countless natural changes and yet still preserved so completely. Isn't that an incredible rarity? Because of this, Su was quickly recognized as the most complete T-Rex skeleton ever discovered in the world. But Su's journey was far from smooth. Shortly after the discovery, the Black Hills Institute of Geological Research paid $5,000 to the landowner for excavation rights. The skeleton was then transported to a laboratory for cleaning and study. Initially, there were plans to build a non-profit museum to display Su. However, an unexpected legal dispute broke out over ownership of the land where Su was found. The situation quickly became complicated and dragged on for years. Finally, in 1997, Su was put up for auction, and the price shocked the world. $8.36 million, a record-breaking figure that made Su the most expensive dinosaur fossil in history. The winning bidder was the Field Museum in Chicago, and since 2000, Su has been permanently housed there, becoming the museum's biggest star. If you ever have the chance to stand in front of Su in real life, you'll understand why it leaves millions of visitors in awe. You see, Su stands nearly 13 feet tall at the hips and stretches 42 feet in length, almost as long as a bus. The skull alone measures about 5 feet and weighs over 2,000 pounds, with 58 razor-sharp teeth, some as long as an adult human forearm. Just imagining it is enough to feel the intensity, right? But Su isn't just impressive in size, it also holds immense scientific value. Thanks to its exceptional preservation, scientists discovered that T-Rex had an incredibly strong sense of smell, powerful enough to detect carcasses from great distances. This supports the theory that T-Rex was not only a predator, but also a scavenger in ancient ecosystems. And there's more. Su is also the first T-Rex skeleton found with a clavicle, collarbone, a small detail but extremely important. It provides further evidence supporting the idea that modern birds are direct descendants of carnivorous dinosaurs like T-Rex. Isn't that fascinating? That a small bird you see outside your home today might carry the genetic legacy of a creature that once ruled the Earth. Today, Sue is more than just a fossil. It has become a symbol of paleontology. Every day, thousands of visitors from around the world come to the Field Museum just to witness this legend with their own eyes. If you ever have the chance, don't miss the opportunity to see its sheer size and presence in person. The mysterious triangle object in Nevada, a crashed UFO, or an unexpected truth. My friend, have you ever come across an image online that feels more and more off the longer you look at it? Something that seems completely ordinary at first, but when placed in the right context, suddenly becomes deeply mysterious? If not, let me tell you a story that began exactly like that, from a seemingly harmless video that ended up stirring the entire online community. Back in 2018, a user was exploring the Earth's surface using Google Earth. While scanning the landscape from above, they unexpectedly spotted a strange object in the middle of the Nevada desert. At first glance, some people might think it's just a shadow or a patch of land with a different color. But no, this object had a clearly defined triangular shape, standing out sharply against the barren desert. And strangely, it was precisely this too clear shape that made it even harder to explain. In the video that was shared, the object appears isolated in a vast, empty desert, with no visible roads or structures nearby. It doesn't resemble a natural rock formation, nor does it look like anything familiar we typically see. And that's when the internet's imagination began to run wild. Many people believed it could be an alien spacecraft that crashed on Earth long ago and was later hidden in the desert. Some comments even suggested that it might be connected to secret operations that governments have never publicly disclosed. At this point, you're probably starting to feel curious too, right? But what made the story even more explosive was the object's location. It lies not far from the infamous Area 51, a place long associated with countless conspiracy theories about UFOs and extraterrestrials. And when you combine those two elements, a mysterious object near Area 51, it's almost guaranteed to spark massive attention. Some users took things even further. Using measurement tools within Google Earth, they estimated the size of the object. The result was shocking. Each side of the triangle measured about 4,140 feet. Just imagine that, a triangular object with each side over 3/4 of a mile long, sitting in the middle of the desert. That's enormous. This detail made many people even more convinced that it couldn't be something ordinary. Some even argued that it looked like a deliberately designed structure, rather than a natural formation. However, not everyone was convinced by the alien spacecraft theory. Skeptics suggested that it could simply be an abandoned man-made structure, or perhaps part of a classified military project. Others proposed that it might just be a visual artifact, caused by camera angles, lighting, or the limited resolution of satellite imagery. To be honest, with images this unclear, determining exactly what the object is becomes nearly impossible. And perhaps that's exactly what makes it so fascinating. You see, sometimes what intrigues people the most isn't the answer, but the unanswered question itself. After being posted, the video quickly gained over 7,000 views, along with a flood of comments debating back and forth. Some believed it, others were skeptical, and everyone had their own explanation. As for me, I have to admit, when I first saw the image, I felt a slight chill down my spine. Not because I was certain it was a UFO, but because of the feeling of standing in front of something I simply couldn't understand. So what about you? Do you think it's truly an alien spacecraft, a secret human-made structure, or just a strange trick of nature and technology? And do you believe extraterrestrial life exists? Skeleton. Inside a mysterious bronze pot in Vietnam, revealing traces of an ancient leader. My friends, our world is truly strange. Some historical secrets aren't buried dozens of feet underground. Sometimes they lie just a few feet below the surface, waiting thousands of years for someone to accidentally uncover them. And no, I'm not exaggerating, because in Vietnam, specifically in Lao Cai province, a place that seems very familiar, a discovery was made that left archaeologists momentarily stunned. At the beginning of 2018, while expanding the area behind a mining station at an apatite factory in Lao Cai, a bulldozer working as usual suddenly struck something hard. A loud clank rang out and a bronze object shattered. scattering ancient artifacts such as axes and spearheads across the ground. The team from the Laokai Provincial Museum quickly arrived at the scene. Construction was immediately halted and the site was preserved, because everyone sensed that this was no ordinary discovery. And they were right. As the soil was carefully cleared away, an ancient tomb gradually came into view. But what shocked everyone the most was the coffin. It wasn't made of wood, it wasn't made of stone. It was a bronze pot, shaped somewhat like a drum, placed upside down with human remains inside. Just hearing that alone sounds puzzling, doesn't it? The pot measures about 24 inches tall with a mouth diameter of about 21 inches. It has 4 handles and a flat base, features characteristic of the Dong Sun culture, which was widespread in northern Vietnam and also found in regions like Yunnan, Guizhou, and Guangxi in China. Although the pot had been broken due to mechanical impact, researchers were still able to reconstruct it almost completely. But what puzzled them even more was the skeleton inside. The hip bones indicated that this was an adult. But think about it. How could an entire adult body fit into such a small pot? Moreover, the skeleton was incomplete, and the bones were no longer arranged according to their original anatomical positions. From this, an important conclusion was reached. This was a secondary burial. In other words, the individual had first been buried normally. Then, after a period of time, the remains were collected and placed into this bronze pot as a second form of burial. It may sound simple, but behind it lies an entire system of beliefs, ideas about death and the afterlife that we still do not fully understand today. Inside the pot, archaeologists also found 4 bronze axes with curved blades, carefully arranged along the sides and base. These were not ordinary tools. They were often associated with individuals of high social status. The tomb was located on a low mound near a small stream. Notably, this area, along the Red River in Laokai, has long been known for numerous elite burials from the Dong Sun culture. This suggests that the discovery is not an isolated case, but part of a broader core region associated with ancient leaders. Researchers also noted that this type of bronze pot closely resembles those found in burial sites of the Western O group in what is now southern China. This points to cultural connections between regions and possibly ties to the southward expansion of the ancient Aulak people. And when mentioning Aulak, one cannot ignore An Duong Vuong, a legendary ruler associated with the mysterious early formation of the nation. No one can say with certainty who this tomb belonged to, but everything that has been found, from the bronze artifacts and geographic location to the burial style, suggests that this may have been the resting place of a person of great importance in that society. Interestingly, even after expanding excavations in the surrounding area, archaeologists have found no additional clear traces. The tomb seems to stand alone, as if it has been quietly guarding its story for thousands of years. You see, history is not always loud or grand. Sometimes, it simply lies silently beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to be told. So what do you think? Was the person inside that bronze pot a leader, a warrior, or someone whose name history has long forgotten? Share your thoughts, because perhaps your answer might make this journey of discovery even more fascinating. 33 skulls in shallow graves in Mexico, revealing a bloody war between drug cartels. In a desolate land where the sun scorches dry bushes and the wind carries the faint, lingering scent of death, Mexican police uncovered a scene that sent chills around the world. At least 33 human skulls were discovered in a mass burial site in Nayarit, western Mexico, one of the country's most notorious hotspots for cartel-related violence. The skulls were scattered across 3 shallow graves, crudely dug as if the perpetrators had no need to hide their actions. As if this was just another part of a massive purge that has become a grim new normal in the region. The story began on January 17th, when a Mexican government official confirmed to the media that 33 skulls had been found, all concentrated in a single area. What made it even more disturbing was the possibility that the number could rise. The initial investigation had started on January 13th, after signs of disturbed soil and tips from local residents raised suspicions. As investigators carefully removed layer after layer of earth, the truth emerged like a silent nightmare. The victims' identities remain unknown, and the motive behind the mass burial is still a major question. However, given the social context of Nayarit, many experts believe the case is likely linked to violence between organized crime groups, particularly the Jalisco New Generation cartel. a name that has been spreading fear across western Mexico. This is one of the most powerful and brutal drug trafficking organizations today, locked in a bloody struggle for dominance with the Sinaloa cartel, once led by the infamous drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. The relentless conflict between these groups pushed Mexico's homicide rate in 2017 to over 20,000 cases, a record-breaking number that raised serious concerns about the country slipping into a large-scale, undeclared internal war. Nayarit, located along the Pacific coast, serves as a strategic transit point for international drug trafficking routes. As a result, it has become a violent battleground for competing cartels. In fact, the state's own attorney general was arrested in San Diego for alleged involvement in drug trafficking, further exposing how deeply organized crime has infiltrated public institutions. In such a context, the discovery of a mass grave is no longer shocking. What truly matters is what it reveals: the sheer scale and chilling brutality of a war being fought in the shadows. Can you imagine it? 33 skulls, no bodies, no identities, no one left to seek justice. Each skull represents an untold story, a person who once lived, perhaps a father, a mother, a child. And now they remain as silent evidence buried beneath the earth. How were they killed? Why were they buried here? Were they victims of a targeted purge, or innocent people caught in a deadly power struggle? These questions remain unanswered. At the time, Mexico's president Enrique Peña Nieto acknowledged that violence and crime were spiraling out of control, despite heavy deployment of military and police forces. The harsh reality is that, no matter the efforts, cartels often operate like shadow governments, controlling territory, finances, and even law enforcement in certain areas. This is what allows massacres like this to occur unnoticed for long periods, until a shovel, in the hands of investigators or even archaeologists, accidentally uncovers the truth. The story of the 33 skulls is not just a shocking case. It is a stark reminder that modern wars are not only fought with armies and weapons, but also through silent purges, where people are buried without even a record of their existence. And sometimes it is not the police or the courts who bring justice first, but those who uncover the past, exposing the truth hidden beneath the soil. So when you watch footage of the excavation, don't just see cold white bones. Try to imagine the lives behind them, and ask yourself, could tragedies like this be prevented if history itself were not buried along with its victims? 2. Incorrupt bodies, preserved for centuries that leave scientists baffled. Throughout the course of human history, there have been many moments when people stood in awe at bodies that refused to decompose after decades, or even centuries. Behind these cases lies an ongoing journey of discovery, filled with countless questions about life, death, and mysteries that seem to lie beyond the reach of modern science. Now, let's open a door through time and step into two of the most extraordinary and sacred stories ever recorded. The incorrupt body of Pope Pius V, preserved for over 4 centuries, and the remarkably intact remains of Venerable Minha Duke, found nearly 30 years after burial. Two individuals, two different faiths, yet both seem to touch the mysterious threshold of physical preservation after death. Let us begin in the heart of Christianity, Vatican City, where the body of Pope Pius V remains intact, showing no signs of decay, even though he passed away in 1572. Canonized on May 22, 1712, his incorrupt body has astonished not only the faithful but also scientists. There was no embalming process, no chemical preservation, yet his body appears as if in a deep, peaceful sleep for more than 4 centuries. Is this a miracle, or a sign of divine grace granted by God to a worthy soul? Pius V, the 225th Pope, was known for his compassion and virtue. During his papacy from 1566 to 1572, he stood out not only for his intellect, but also for his humility and dedication to the poor, the sick, and efforts toward global peace. Because of his lifelong devotion, many believers see the preservation of his body as a mark of holiness, a symbol of the connection between heaven and earth. Today, his remains are housed in a silver and glass shrine at Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore in Rome, where thousands of pilgrims visit each year to pay their respects. But just when one might think such a phenomenon is unique, another astonishing story emerges from Quang Ngai Province, Vietnam. There, the remains of Venerable Minha Duke were found intact after 27 years buried underground, despite the region's humid climate and frequent flooding. Even more remarkably, although the wooden coffin had completely decayed over time, the monk's robes remained intact. His skeletal joints were still firmly connected, hardened almost like stone, and his entire body emitted a faint golden hue. How could this be explained? Venerable Min-ha-duk, also known as Thich Minh Duk, was born in 1901 into a scholarly family. He lived a humble life devoted to rigorous spiritual practice and was known for his deep knowledge of Buddhist scriptures as well as traditional medicine. He was not only a devoted monk, but also a healer, a revolutionary involved in resistance movements, and a teacher to generations of Buddhist followers. Before his passing in 1985, he reportedly foresaw his own death, calmly instructing his disciples before peacefully leaving this world on a quiet night. Yet no one expected that nearly 30 years later, when his remains were exhumed, his body would appear almost exactly as it had been at the time of burial, leaving locals, monks, and researchers speechless. What makes this case even more fascinating is that, unlike Pope Pius V, Venerable Min-ha-duk's body was not embalmed or preserved using any special substances. So what preserved it? Could it be the result of a lifetime of disciplined spiritual practice, thousands of hours of meditation, countless recitations, and complete purification of body, mind, and spirit? Stories of incorrupt bodies are not merely religious or mystical records. They reflect something deeply rooted in human spiritual culture, where the belief in absolute purity may allow the physical body to transcend natural laws. Some believe this is evidence of ultimate enlightenment. Others call it a miracle, and some suggest it may be due to environmental factors or scientific mechanisms not yet fully understood. But regardless of the explanation, standing before such preserved bodies often causes people to pause and reflect on life, on death, and on the mysteries that lie beyond the limits of human knowledge. So what do you think? Is this a rare biological phenomenon, the result of lifelong spiritual discipline, or the work of something beyond our understanding? And perhaps most importantly, will science one day have the tools to fully explain these mysteries? As you can see, history isn't a closed story. It's more like a book that's still being written every single day. Each new discovery doesn't just help us better understand the past. It also forces us to question what we once believed to be true. Who knows? Right beneath our feet right now, there may still be countless secrets waiting to be uncovered. And sometimes, it only takes one small discovery to completely change the way humanity sees itself. So what do you think about these discoveries? Which one impressed you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any other fascinating discoveries from ancient history. For now, goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video.